Atypically, we're beginning this podcast from the rehearsal room of the Seattle Philharmonic, where in about 45 minutes, this grand piano is going to be host to our soloist for this program, Cristina Valdez, who's going to join us for Maurice Ravel's Concerto for the Left Hand, the centerpiece of this concert that we've called A Great Teacher is a Great Artist. When Cristina and I decided to do the Ravel, I thought, well, what could complement the rest of the concert? Would it be an all-Ravel concert, an all-French concert, and all this? And I suddenly remembered that one of my favorite composers, whom I don't get to conduct nearly enough to suit myself, is Fauré, who was Ravel's teacher. And then I remembered that Saint-Saëns was Fauré's teacher. And then I further remembered that Ravel was the teacher of my favorite 20th century composer, Vaughan Williams. And I thought, well, how about if we did a concert where we would trace this line of composers, one after the other? And so we're going to be looking at about 80 years worth of music, from Saint-Saëns all the way to Vaughan Williams, with the various student-teacher relationships sandwiched in between. And I think that there will be both opportunities to observe the uniqueness of each composer and also some of the traits that they all shared: their elegance, their perfect orchestration, their ability to conjure up really wonderful tunes, melody being, of course, probably the biggest secret of any composer. How do you compose melody? What makes it lasting? All these four gentlemen knew that secret. One thing that came out of this concert in preparing for it was a reminiscence from my childhood. When I got to know the Saint-Saëns Danse Macabre, a work that I love very much and have never conducted before this upcoming concert, I, by that time, knew the Berlioz Symphonie Fantastique, which probably has the most famous use of the theme known as the Dies Irae, theme from the ancient Catholic Mass from the Dead, which many classical composers have used when they're trying to evoke an atmosphere of death, of grimness, of foreboding. In the case of the Berlioz, he uses it with no mystery whatsoever. Now, I'm sure that theme is recognizable to many of you who know the works of Rachmaninoff, who used it in just about every other piece he ever wrote. Respighi used it, Vaughan Williams used it once. But as I was getting to know the Saint-Saëns and knowing that theme in my head, I remember listening to one recording of it that I found and reading on the back of the album jacket, you know, the Saint-Saëns uses a mistuned violin and an imitation of a cock crowing at sunrise, and Saint-Saëns' use of the Dies Irae. And by this time, I'd heard Danse Macabre many times, and I thought, wait a minute, Dies Irae and Danse Macabre? And I started going through the piece in my head. Couldn't place it, so I put the album on. And suddenly, I was rolling on the floor laughing, realizing that Saint-Saëns had used it in such a unique way. He put it into waltz time. The Danse Macabre is essentially an orchestral waltz, and used it in this way. Remember, well, this is Saint-Saëns' use of it. Pretty cool. That's what a great composer can do with a tune, and transform it, make it utterly her or his own, depending on their needs at the moment. The concluding work on our concert is the Eighth Symphony by Vaughan Williams, a work that he wrote in his early 80s, italics, early 80s. It sounds like the work of a 25-year-old composer having the most fun with the orchestra that he's ever had. As Vaughan Williams grew older, it didn't in any way diminish his adventurous spirit, and he got increasingly interested, among other things, in the percussion section of the orchestra. And in this one, he's got parts for glockenspiel, xylophone, chimes, vibraphone, bass drum, cymbals, snare drum, you name it, it's in there. There's even a part for 3 tuned gongs. He and his wife had gone to see a performance of Puccini's opera Turandot, and when he heard those gongs, as he was gestating his own 8th Symphony, he said, those have got to go in there. And indeed they did. We will have a set of gongs at our performance, adding their unique color to this symphony. Vaughan Williams was a bit of a pixie when it came to writing program notes. I don't think he liked writing them very much, so he figured since it was an odious procedure, why not just have fun with them? And when he wrote the notes for this symphony, he referred to the first movement as variations in search of a theme. It is essentially a theme in variations, but not so much on a theme as a 4-note, what we call in music a motif, uttered by the trumpet in the very opening bar, which, now I think of it, is from My Fair Lady, isn't it? In the second movement, he turns that theme around. So instead of, he goes, except to give it a little variety, he turns the first fourth into an augmented fourth. So the theme of the second movement is, but beginning with that. To give it unity, the third movement begins with a rising fourth. So this whole sequence of fourths, the symphony begins, the second movement begins, and the third movement. And then to quash it all, the last movement is built on a theme based not on fourths, but thirds, 2 descending thirds. And a joyous, clangorous finale it is. It's going to fill Benaroya Hall with the most joyous sounds that Vaughan Williams ever wrote.